What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm here with another Booker Longlist book review. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you don't know, this year I joined a book club where we are reading through all 13 books that were nominated for the 2025 Booker Longlist Award. And here's another one. Today is Endling by Reva. This is interesting. And I was sitting here thinking of how I can kind of give a synopsis of this book without spoiling anything. So the synopsis will be brief, and then I'll kind of get into my thoughts because it's so hard to not give it away. For one, this is a work of metafiction. For two, things aren't always what they seem. And I feel like part of the enjoyment of the book was realizing the shift between part one and part two of the book. So I don't really want to spoil it, but what it's about on its surface is this, and this is based on the blurb because I really don't want to give anything away. So pretty much there's a main character who is a scientist that deals with endlings. She deals with a specific breed of snails that are on the verge of extinction. And what she does is travels in her mobile lab and she tries to find them a mate so they can mate, make little snail babies and continue on their species. Okay. So she's in Ukraine at the time. By the way, the author is born and raised in Ukraine and then currently lives in Canada, moved to Canada some time ago and lives in Canada. But this main character is also in Ukraine. And as she's traveling with her mobile lab, she realized she needs money. Okay. She needs money to be able to pay for all of this. She kind of gets involved with this thing called the romance tours, which is pretty much the marriage industry where men from all over the world would come to Ukraine in search of their bride or going on date with escorts and stuff like that. And so she joins that because it's funding her research and it's funding her mobile lab so she can continue to kind of try to keep these endling species alive. Then things go awry. Okay, I'm not going to get into where this story kind of flips on its head, but what I will say is there is a point of this book that talks about the invasion of Ukraine. It talks about war in general. It talks about people in search of somebody that understands them. They're in search of something. Sometimes you go home to get it. Sometimes you go far and near. You get to see male perspective and a woman's perspective on what's happening in this book. What I liked about it is how snails were used as like a metaphor for other things, for human relationships, for war in general, for what's important and what's not, for individuality, understanding, and basic human needs. I did like that. I wasn't expecting I don't want to say plot twist, but I wasn't expecting metafiction to even come in and be a part of this book. So that kind of shocked me, but in a good way. I actually liked what this book had in it. Kind of like the angle that the author took with the book. I like that you were able to kind of see the writing process and what goes into crafting a story or a novel. I like the fact that you were able to see how writers examine their memories, their emotions, their experiences, and how there was this idea of who has the right to grieve, who has a certain claim to grief when we're looking at tragedies that happen abroad. Just how how it's woven and how it kind of plays out. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of good things and thoughts to think about in that regard. So I did appreciate that. This was good. It talked about a sense of normalcy that people seek and isn't an illusion. Is safety this thin veil? You know what I mean? That can be popped at any moment. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, that need for human interaction and love, for being loved for who you actually are, even if it goes against the norm, even if it's counter societal and counterintuitive and most people don't understand what you do, why you do, or where you're doing it. Another thing I really liked about this book is adult children, the relationship between adult children and their parents. Like, what's expected of you versus what you actually do. And even like the adolescence and growing up portion, that difference between the expectations of your parents and how you're raised versus the decisions that you actually make on your own. I thought that was pretty interesting to think about, especially kind of, again, how the author told it was something I wasn't really expecting, but it still worked. You know, your parents, most times they want something different from you. If they're leaving the country, because there was a main character in this book, Pasha, a male main character who his parents immigrated with him to Canada, immigrated with him as well to Canada. And you get to see how they wanted something different for their son. You know, they left, they tried to give him something that they didn't have, even if other people wouldn't have seen it as necessarily a negative thing that they had. They wanted to give him a different experience. They wanted him to make different decisions that they made than they made. They wanted him to choose another path. And then, you know, you could have the option. You could try hard to go this way, or you could kind of go the same way that your parents went. But then you think about how that kind of shapes the future of the relationship too in that moment and then further down the line. So I actually enjoyed this book. This is still, it's not my top. It's not my top book that I've read from the book of Longlist, but it was interesting. And let me say, this is my first year actually reading through the book of Longlist books. I mentioned in other videos that I've read books on the long list, but not like the long list in its entirety. And I keep going back to like, what makes these books be nominated in the first place? And I feel like most of them are experimental. Quite a bit have like some metafictional element to it. They're out there. I mean, I don't know. This was interesting. It was definitely a creative story. It was creative through and through. And I did appreciate that. I was interested while reading it. I wanted to know what happened on both ends of the stories being told. And I think it has some important themes in it, some very good talking points. It was interesting. It was interesting, especially when you think about war. Yeah, and like this delicate dance that you do in families, you know. So that's it for this quick review. This will be the last book of Longlist book that I read in 2025. I still have 2 more that I will get to in 2026. But that's it for this year as far as the book of Longlist books go. It's Endling. Let me know if you read it or if you want to read it. Yeah. Percival Everett said it's a fantastic novel. I enjoyed it. I'm realizing there's been a couple books on the book of Longlist that I actually really, really, really enjoyed. A lot of them I was like, yeah, it was good. This was good, but it wasn't like, bam, up there, you know? And then a lot of them was just okay. So I don't know if it's like, I don't know. You know, I'm reading through them. I'm glad that I read them all. I feel like they all have something to offer, something unique about them. They all have like a good message. That's it, y'all, for today. Endling by Reva. Yeah, let me know if this is on your list to read or if you like, nah, that's not for me. And I'm going to see y'all on the next one.